There's a temptation to punt on these readings, right? To not talk about the hard teachings of the sacred scriptures on marriage. But my job is sometimes to say the hard truths, even if it makes you uncomfortable, right? We've made an absolute mess of marriage in our society. And as you look around at society, the effects of making a mess of marriage are just everywhere seen. How did we get to a place where we as society decided that we have the right to determine what marriage is? Marriage is a gift from God. We use that word in the Catholic Church, and it means something very, very specific. And we use that word outside the church, and it means something entirely different. Marriage is not about, tax exemptions or your status with the government. Holy matrimony is one of the 7 sacraments. That means it is one of the divine mysteries by which we participate in the life of Jesus himself. That is a gift from God, and every gift implies a giver, which means that the gift is not at our disposition to do whatever we choose with or define it in any other way that we want. How did we get to this place? At least 2 things among many: divorce and contraception. As a Catholic, you are just as likely to get divorced as the rest of the world. What does that tell you about how we understand marriage? The sacred scriptures, the teaching of Christ, does not permit divorce for any reason. When you make those vows, till death do you part, all the days of your life, that means exactly that. All the days of your life until death do you part. What God has joined together, no man may separate. Not a priest, not a bishop, not even the Pope. It is not at our disposal. The Catholic Church has absolutely no power over the essence of the sacraments. It cannot and will not change what marriage is. 50 years ago, you had to really fight to get a divorce, even in a civil society. You had to prove that you were really being mistreated in a very severe and dangerous way. What have we come up with now? No-fault divorce. I've decided I'm no longer happy, and I'm pretty sure that I'd either be happier alone or happier with someone else of my choosing. Well, what nonsense. Whoever told you marriage was about happiness? Marriage is a sacrament because it participates in the cross. And when we lose sight of that, what that means, we lose something of what the essence of marriage is. Priesthood and marriage are put in the same category in the Catechism. Sacraments at the service of communion. That means my priesthood is not about taking great vacations and treating myself well and living the bachelor life. My priesthood is to be at the service of the people of my parish, and I will only find my sanctification through serving those people. So likewise, husbands, your marriage is not about you. It isn't about what you want or what you like or how tired you are or that you'd rather watch the football game or hang out with your friends or work on the cars. Your marriage isn't about you. It's about your wife And if God has given you blessings, your children. Likewise, wives, your marriage is not about your happiness. Your marriage is about service to your husband. And it's only in that service of one another that you actually find the life-giving sacrifice where we die to ourselves to serve another that brings us the blessings of grace. Now, many of us may find ourselves in a position where we've made particular mistakes. The hard teaching of Jesus is not meant to exclude you from his love or the share of his grace or the community of the church. It's meant to invite you to walk the path of the gospel, to repent of the mistakes that you've made, to do what repair that you need, to take the next step forward in following Jesus. So if you found yourself in a place of divorce and even remarriage, please come and see me. I can help you walk through and sort through that stuff. Contraception. Is there any Catholic here today that doesn't know what the church officially teaches about contraception? We all know. We've just decided as Catholics that the church is a little bit foolish about this, right? We've decided to do it our own way. How's that worked out for us? You know, Paul VI wrote an encyclical, Humanae Vitae, and he predicted that if we allow contraception within marriage, it would lead to greater rates of divorce, check. Higher instances of unfaithfulness, adultery, sexually transmitted diseases, all the things that come from it. Look around at the world. Have we not reaped the full benefit of contraception in our relationships? God requires that your marriage be fruitful, right? And if you purposely put an obstacle in the way of that fruitfulness, what you do is you tell God, my marriage is mine and not yours. And you sin not only against God or the law of the church or the teaching of Christ, you sin against your spouse, and you sin against your community. You sin against marriage itself. You see, our unfaithfulness in these various areas is what has brought the world to understand that even we don't believe that marriage is holy. If we don't believe it, if we don't live it, why ever should they? Okay. So you might ask yourself, what does a celibate man have to say about marriage? Well, as it turns out, quite a bit. I spend a good portion of my priesthood either preparing couples for marriage or dealing with marriage counseling in the troubled times. So from an objective standpoint, I have an insight, right? The deacon and I had a slight little disagreement. He thinks I'm married to the church. I say I'm not married at all. The church has a spouse. It's Jesus Christ. She doesn't need another, certainly not me, right? But I do have an understanding of marriage. Husbands, when you don't do what you're supposed to, when you don't communicate with your wives, when you don't listen to them, when you don't cherish them and let them know that they are loved, not just for birthdays and anniversaries, but every day, when you don't serve your wives as a husband should, they come to me to complain. Please do what your wives have asked you. I understand one of the reasons now that I don't have a wife is because I have a couple hundred of them, right? Wives, if you complain about your husbands not doing what they're supposed to do, it's very common for your husbands to complain about their wives nagging them. In all the years of nagging your husband, has it ever gotten you what you wanted? Has it ever fixed the problem? Please stop. What if we got up every morning and decided that our vocations, marriage and priesthood, were the most important things in our lives, that they were our pathways to heaven, and that we needed to faithfully obey the teachings of Christ and the gospel? What if we decided to serve one another, to get up every day not searching for our happiness, but for the happiness of the other, for the salvation of the other? You see, the gospel is a light that shines truth into our lives, and we conform our lives to that light. We don't soften the light or obscure it and conform the gospel to our lives. It works the other way around. If you and I did this, we would show people the beauty of a grace-filled and holy marriage. We could once again reconstitute it so that people actually understand that marriage is a beautiful, wonderful, and holy thing. Right? Divorce rates are dropping. Good news, right? Because people aren't getting married anymore. They've seen the mess that we've made of it, and they don't want any part of it. So what I ask of you is this. Please pray for married couples, especially those in our community. And not just married couples, but young couples, that they have the courage to answer God's call to live a holy marriage. And pray for those who have suffered through divorce, right? The suffering and struggles that comes with that. If we take this seriously and pray for one another and do each day the things that we're supposed to, the blessing of marriage will reignite and sanctify the church, and so sanctify the world. I will pray for you in your marriages. I ask you also to pray for me.